The monastery stood silent on the high mountain ridge. Its stone walls had faced winds, rains, and countless winters for nearly 1,000 years. The monks who lived within were used to storms, but the one that came last night had been different. Heavy rain shook the valley, and thunder roared across the peaks. When morning came, part of the foundation near the old prayer hall had crumbled. Brother Unil was the first to see it. He had gone out with a lantern in hand, checking the damage. At the base of the wall, where the ground had split, he noticed a gap wide enough for a man to crawl through. Curious, he brought the lantern close and peered in. A rush of cold air touched his face, carrying the smell of stone that had been hidden for centuries. He stepped back, uneasy. The monastery was old, but no record spoke of a hollow space beneath. He hurried to the abbot and told him what he had found. Soon, a group of monks gathered around the gap. They whispered among themselves. Some thought it was only a natural crack, while others felt it was something more. The abbot, an elderly man with calm eyes, placed his hand on the stone. After a long pause, he said the passage must be sealed until help arrived from outside. 2 days later, a small group of visitors came from the nearby town. They were not monks, but scholars and explorers. Among them was Myra, a young historian known for her interest in ancient cultures, and Rohan, a quiet man with skill in handling old structures. They greeted the monks respectfully and listened to the abbot's account. When the group approached the gap, they widened it enough to let them pass. Lanterns were lit, and ropes were tied for safety. The monks stayed behind, their chants echoing faintly through the hall as the explorers prepared to descend. Myra led the way, her eyes glowing with excitement. Inside, the air was colder than expected. The floor sloped downward, cut from rock with surprising neatness. The walls bore faint carvings, though time had worn them thin. Myra ran her fingers across the stone and stopped. The lines were not like the monastery's known symbols. They curved and joined in patterns too precise for chance. "This is not from the builders of the monastery," she whispered. "This is older." Rohan studied the walls carefully. He carried tools but did not need them yet. The way the stones were shaped gave him an uneasy feeling. They seemed too perfect, almost like work done with tools no mason of that age could have possessed. The passage continued deeper. Their lanterns revealed turns and narrow stretches, where only one could pass at a time. At one point, Myra stopped to catch her breath and noticed something strange. The air itself seemed to hum faintly. It was not loud, more like a vibration at the edge of hearing. She frowned but said nothing for now. After some distance, the passage widened into a chamber. The ceiling arched high above, and the wall seemed smoother here. In the center lay a stone door, half buried in rubble. Its surface bore more of the unknown carvings, still sharp despite the years. The explorers stood in silence, their lantern light casting long shadows. Rohan stepped closer and brushed dust from the carvings. The lines seemed to form a circle, but the center was blank as if something had once been set there. Myra carefully sketched the patterns in her notebook. "This place was hidden for a reason," she said. Her voice was steady, but her heart beat faster. The monastery may have been built over it on purpose. Perhaps the monks of old wanted to guard what lies below. The others nodded quietly. None spoke of treasure or danger. The silence of the place was heavy, pressing down on them. Even the sound of their breath seemed too loud. When they tried to push at the stone door, it did not move. The rubble made it impossible to open fully, but they managed to clear some of the fallen rock. Still, the door held firm as if it had been sealed from the other side. As they rested, Myra lit a candle and placed it on the floor. She watched how the flame flickered, tilting toward the passage behind them. It was strange, for there was no draft they could feel. Yet the candle insisted there was movement of air. That meant more chambers lay beyond the sealed door. The group exchanged glances. The discovery was no longer just an old passage. It was something hidden with intention. Back at the monastery, the abbot listened carefully to their first report. His eyes narrowed when Myra described the humming air and the carvings. He said nothing for a while, then finally spoke. This mountain has kept many secrets. Our records tell of pilgrims who came long before the monastery was built. They spoke of lights in the sky, of teachers from beyond who shared wisdom and then vanished. Perhaps this crypt is linked to those stories. Myra leaned forward. You mean legends of beings not from this world? The abbot did not answer directly, but his silence was enough. He simply reminded them that if they chose to continue, they must do so with respect. The monks would not stop them, but they would not interfere either. The place below, he said, must reveal itself in its own time. That night, Myra could not sleep. She sat by the monastery's old window, staring at the stars. The air was thin and sharp, carrying the scent of pine and snow. Her thoughts circled endlessly. If this crypt truly held a link to something beyond human history, then they stood on the edge of a discovery that could change everything. Yet she also felt a growing weight of unease. Something about the silence of the chamber below did not feel empty. It felt watchful. In the morning, they prepared again to return to the crypt. The monks gave them food and blessed them with chants. The explorers tightened their ropes, packed their tools, and lit their lanterns once more. As they stepped into the passage, the light of day slowly faded behind them. The hum in the air seemed louder now. Each step downward felt like walking deeper into a story long forgotten. The monastery above was only the surface. What lay hidden below waited in darkness, patient through centuries, waiting for human hands to uncover it again. And so their descent continued, toward the sealed door that had slept untouched beneath the ancient monastery. The stone door stood before them like a silent guard. It was heavy, tall, and marked with symbols that none of the explorers could read. The carvings shone faintly under the glow of their lanterns, as if the lines had been made not by hand but by something far more precise. Myra studied the patterns carefully, her fingers tracing the cold surface. Rohan placed his palm against the stone and felt nothing but solid weight. We will need tools, he said. The group carried small hammers, chisels, and ropes. They began working carefully, clearing the last of the rubble that clung to the bottom edge of the door. The sound of their chisels echoed through the chamber, sharp against the silence. Each strike made them more aware of how empty and strange the place was. Still, they worked with steady hands until a narrow gap appeared. Rohan pushed, and this time the stone shifted. A deep rumble rolled through the chamber as if the mountain itself resisted the movement. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the monks above surely felt the vibration, but the door gave way. Slowly, a dark passage revealed itself. Cold air swept out, touching their faces like a breath from another time. Myra held up her lantern. The light spilled forward, showing a long corridor lined with smooth walls. These walls were not carved like the earlier passage. They were polished, almost shining, and seemed to stretch endlessly. The explorers stepped inside with careful steps. The ground beneath their feet was so even that it felt unnatural, as if no tool of stone or iron had touched it. The deeper they went, the more the humming sound returned. This time it was clearer, steady, and almost alive. It seemed to come from the walls themselves. Myra stopped for a moment and pressed her ear to the stone. She could feel a faint vibration running through it. This place is not dead, she whispered. Her words made the others shiver. Rohan glanced back at the entrance, but the door now stood slightly ajar, enough to let them out if needed. Still, he felt uneasy leaving the safety of open air behind. They continued. The corridor led them downward in a slow spiral. At certain points, narrow archways opened into side chambers, though many were blocked by fallen rock. Myra peeked into one and found broken fragments of what looked like glass or crystal scattered on the floor. They glittered faintly in the lantern light, though none of the explorers could guess their purpose. The air grew colder the further they went. Their breaths turned white in the lantern glow. Yet, despite the chill, none of them felt that the place was abandoned. Every step gave the impression that something here was waiting. At last, the corridor ended in a wide hall. The explorers stood at the threshold, speechless. The ceiling rose high above them, so high that their lantern light could not touch it fully. Pillars of dark stone lined the walls, each carved with the same strange symbols. At the center of the hall stood several tall shapes, like standing coffins, smooth and metallic, glowing faintly with a blue light that seemed to come from within. Myra gasped. "These are not stone." She approached one of the tall structures and placed her hand an inch from its surface. The glow inside pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. The surface was cool and smooth, unlike anything she had ever touched. Rohan circled another of the structures, running his hand along its base. There were no seams, no signs of how it had been made. It was perfect, as though it had grown from the floor itself. "This is not the work of men," he said. The group fell silent. Each of them felt the same thought pressing into their minds. Whatever this place was, it was not built by human hands. And yet, it had been buried beneath a monastery, guarded by monks who may or may not have known its true nature. On the far wall, Myra noticed murals carved into polished stone. She hurried to examine them, lantern raised high. The images showed figures with long limbs and glowing eyes, standing among stars. But what made her heart race was the sight of smaller figures beside them. They were unmistakably human, drawn with round heads and short bodies, reaching their hands toward the taller beings. "Look at this," Myra called. The others gathered. The mural told a story, though no words were written. Tall beings descended from the sky, humans greeted them, and together they stood in harmony. Then came another scene, one showing the tall beings lying within the glowing structures, as if in rest. Rohan studied the mural with furrowed brows. "It looks like they wanted to be remembered here. Or maybe they wanted to sleep here." As they stood before the mural, the humming grew stronger. It was no longer just a faint vibration. It became a steady sound filling the hall, low and resonant, making the pillars seem to tremble. The explorers stepped back, fear and awe mixing in their eyes. One of the glowing structures stirred. Its blue light brightened for a brief moment, then dimmed again. Myra gasped, clutching her notebook. She wanted to write everything down, but her hands shook too much. Rohan raised his lantern higher, scanning the chamber. He noticed that the structures were not alone. Along the edges of the hall were consoles of some kind, built into the floor and wall. They were covered in dust but not broken. He brushed his hand across one, and to his shock, it responded. The dust blew away as the surface lit up with soft blue lines. The others rushed to him. The console glowed faintly, forming shapes that looked like symbols but slowly rearranged into simpler forms. To their astonishment, the shapes began to resemble letters of their own language. It was as if the system was adjusting itself to be understood. "This is alive," Myra whispered. "It is waiting for someone." They stared at the glowing symbols. None of them dared touch it further. The realization was clear. The crypt beneath the monastery was not a tomb. It was a chamber of machines, built with purpose, still awake after centuries. The explorers stood together in silence, their hearts heavy with wonder. Behind them, the sealed door now felt like a thin barrier between the known world and the unknown. Ahead of them stood mysteries that no book had ever recorded. The humming did not stop. It grew steadier, as if acknowledging their presence. The hall seemed to breathe, and the glowing structures pulsed faintly, waiting. For the first time, Myra understood the weight of what they had found. This was not just history. This was a meeting place between humanity and something far older, something that had chosen to hide beneath the monastery, waiting for human hands to find it again. The explorers stood frozen in the wide hall. The blue glow from the tall structures pulsed faintly, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The humming sound seemed to move through their bones, steady and alive. None of them spoke at first. It felt as if the chamber itself was listening. Myra finally stepped forward, her lantern trembling in her hand. She walked closer to the mural on the wall. The carved figures told their silent story with more detail than she had noticed before. In one panel, the tall beings stretched their hands down toward the small human figures. In the next, humans stood beside them, holding tools that looked strange yet powerful. In the final carving, the tall beings lay inside the glowing structures while the humans stood around them with expressions that seemed almost like sorrow. "This is no ordinary crypt," Myra said softly. "It is a place of memory." They wanted someone to know the story. Rohan joined her. His eyes followed the flow of the carvings. They were not enemies. These figures show peace, not war. Whoever they were, they lived with humans long ago. The others gathered closer. The silence of the hall pressed on them, but curiosity grew stronger than fear. Myra pulled her notebook from her bag and began sketching the mural with quick strokes. She wanted every line recorded, every figure remembered. As she drew, something strange happened. The blue glow from the structures brightened slightly, enough to light the mural more clearly. The explorers exchanged glances. It was as if the place wanted them to see. On the far side of the hall, another set of carvings caught Rohan's eye. These were smaller, arranged in neat rows. They were not pictures but symbols, more complex than those near the door. He studied them closely. The shapes curved in ways that almost resembled letters, though not from any known language. "It looks like writing," he said. "Maybe their history, or instructions." Myra came beside him, sketching those as well. "If this is writing, then it could take years to understand. But look at how the symbols are carved. They are too exact, too clean, as if made with tools beyond anything we know." Rohan nodded slowly. "Tools we cannot imagine." The humming grew stronger, and the explorers turned toward the glowing structures again. One of them flickered, its blue light flashing twice before calming. Myra's heart pounded. She stepped closer, her hand hovering just above the smooth surface. For a moment she thought she felt warmth beneath her palm, but when she touched it, the surface was cold and unyielding. Behind her, one of the explorers named Arun whispered nervously. "What if they are still inside? What if these are not coffins but something else?" The thought spread quickly through their minds. The structures were tall enough to hold the figures from the carvings. They glowed faintly, as if power still flowed within them. Could they be resting chambers? Machines that held the tall beings in sleep rather than death? Myra turned back to the mural. In the last carving, the tall figures lay inside the glowing shapes while the humans stood nearby. Their postures did not show grief but something closer to duty. Perhaps the humans had agreed to guard them, to keep their secret safe. The realization made Myra's breath catch. "The monastery above," she whispered. "It was built here for a reason. The monks may have been protecting this place all along, even if they forgot why." The group fell into silence again. Each of them could feel the weight of what they had uncovered. This was not only history. It was a bond between humans and something from beyond the stars, hidden beneath stone and prayer for centuries. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. It was not the steady hum but a softer tone, like a bell struck deep within the walls. The explorers spun around, lanterns raised high. The sound echoed once, then faded. Rohan tightened his grip on his lantern. "We are not alone here." They waited, breaths held, but no figure appeared. The blue glow steadied again, and the hall seemed quiet. Yet the sense of presence did not fade. It was as if unseen eyes watched them, patient and calm. Myra gathered her courage. She returned to the console that had lit up when Rohan brushed away the dust earlier. She placed her hand gently on its glowing surface. Instantly, the symbols rearranged themselves again. This time they formed shapes that resembled stars. A map spread across the console, glowing faintly like constellations in the night sky. The explorers gasped. It was a star map, vast and complex, showing points of light connected by lines. Some stars were circled, others linked in patterns. Myra leaned closer, her eyes wide. "This is a map of the heavens," she said. "But not as we see them from here. These are positions from another place, perhaps even across the galaxy." The map shifted again, and a single point of light pulsed brighter than the rest. It was close to the center of the map, marked by a circle of blue. The symbols near it changed slowly, forming shapes that looked almost like numbers. "Coordinates," Rohan said quietly. "It is showing us where they came from, or where they wanted to go." The weight of the discovery pressed on all of them. The mural had shown humans standing with the tall beings, and now the console revealed a map of the stars. It was as if the beings had left instructions, waiting for the right moment, the right people, to find them. Myra's hands shook as she wrote in her notebook. She could hardly believe what she saw, yet the glowing lines on the console were undeniable. This was proof that the chamber was more than a crypt. It was a message, perhaps even an invitation. The humming filled the hall once more, rising and falling like a voice. The explorers stood together, lanterns trembling in their hands, staring at the star map glowing before them. For the first time, they realized that they were standing not only in a forgotten chamber but at the edge of a story much larger than their own. The crypt was not silent. It was speaking, and the echoes of the past were only beginning to be heard. The explorers stared at the glowing star map for several minutes, awe and curiosity battling fear. The hall hummed steadily, a low vibration that seemed to come from the walls, the floor, and the tall glowing structures. Myra's hand hovered above the console, hesitant to touch it again, yet drawn by a force she could not explain. "Should we try to interact with it?" Rohan asked quietly. Myra swallowed. "I think it wants us to." She placed her palm gently on the smooth surface of the console. Immediately, the blue glow intensified. Lines of light moved across the floor, connecting the tall structures like threads of energy. The humming grew louder, vibrating through their bones. The explorers instinctively stepped back, though none moved away completely. Suddenly, one of the tall structures began to shift. A panel slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a narrow interior lit by the same faint blue glow. The air inside smelled faintly of metal and ozone. Myra peered into it. The interior looked empty, yet the energy inside made her shiver. "It is reacting to us," she whispered. Arun, usually quiet, took a step forward. "Maybe it recognizes humans. Maybe it is waiting for us." The console pulsed again, projecting soft lights toward the ceiling. The beams formed a pattern that resembled a geometric shape, rotating slowly. As it turned, a voice echoed faintly in the hall. It was not a human voice, but it had rhythm and tone, almost like music. The explorers froze, listening. "I can hear it," Myra said softly. "It is communicating. Not in words, but in signals." Rohan stepped closer to the console and brushed his hand lightly across another panel. The lights on the structures intensified. The blue glow from each of the tall shapes now pulsed in sequence, like a heartbeat. Myra noticed that the symbols on the walls also began to glow faintly. The entire hall seemed alive, responding to human presence. The voice or signal became clearer. It was a pattern of sound and vibration, repeating itself. Myra realized that the console was translating it, slowly forming letters and simple words in her mind. "We are recognized," she said, voice trembling. "It knows we are human." The explorers exchanged nervous glances. None of them had expected the crypt to awaken. The murals, the star map, and now the pulsing structures. It was more than a tomb. It was a living record of something far older, something that had trusted humans to find it. Rohan noticed a small panel at the base of one of the glowing structures. It bore a simple indentation, shaped like a handprint. He motioned to Myra. "Try this," he said. Myra pressed her hand into the indentation. The moment she did, a wave of energy moved through the hall. The lights on the structures flared bright blue for a few seconds, then dimmed to a steady glow again. The humming became rhythmic, like the beat of a giant heart. "Do you feel that?" Arun asked, eyes wide. "Yes," Myra said. "It is alive, or at least, it is active. It responds to us." One of the structures slid fully open, revealing a chamber inside. The blue glow formed lines along the interior walls, creating symbols and shapes similar to those in the murals. Myra stepped closer and looked inside. The chamber was empty, yet she could feel something inside it, like a memory waiting to be seen. The console pulsed again, and the star map shifted. A new pattern emerged, showing lines connecting distant stars. Myra noticed a faint light at the center of the hall, forming the shape of a figure. Slowly, the shape became clearer. It was humanoid but taller than any human, with elongated limbs and eyes that seemed to glow. The figure moved smoothly, stepping out of the pattern of light onto the floor. The explorers gasped. They had expected machines, not a figure that seemed alive. The figure did not speak in words but moved its hands in gestures. Myra realized that the console was translating the gestures into meanings she could understand. "It says we are welcome," she whispered. The glowing figure raised one hand, pointing toward the star map. Lines of energy connected the figure to the glowing structures and the console. The entire hall pulsed with light in a slow, steady rhythm. Myra and Rohan stepped closer, feeling the vibrations move through them like a gentle wave. "This place is a mechanism," Rohan said, awe in his voice. "It was built to awaken when humans arrived." The figure gestured again. This time, it pointed toward the murals. Myra turned her attention back to them. She noticed that the glowing structures aligned perfectly with the figures in the carvings. The tall beings in the murals had corresponded with these structures, and now the mechanism had reawakened, responding to their presence. "It is as if it waited for the right hands to find it," she said. The humming increased, then dropped to silence. The glow from the structures dimmed slightly, leaving just enough light to see the details in the hall. Myra looked around and realized that the mechanism was not finished. The glowing figure, the pulsing lights, the star map, and the murals were all part of a larger system. It had been built to communicate with humans, to guide them. Rohan took a deep breath. "We are standing in a room that has waited centuries for us," he said. "It was built for humans, not for anyone else." The glowing figure raised its hands one last time and then retreated into the pattern of light on the floor. The structures hummed softly, the star map pulsed gently, and the hall returned to a calm state. The explorers felt a weight lift, as if the chamber had acknowledged them and accepted their presence. Myra leaned against one of the pillars, her mind racing. "This is more than history," she said. "It is a message. They trusted humans to find it and to understand it." Arun nodded. "And it is waiting for us to do something next. To continue its purpose." The explorers understood that their journey had only begun. The awakening mechanism had shown them that humans were not only discoverers here, they were chosen. The crypt beneath the monastery was alive, and it had recognized the explorers as part of its story. As they stood together, looking at the glowing structures and the star map, the air felt charged with possibility. The mechanism had awakened, and the echoes of the past were no longer silent. The hall beneath the monastery had revealed its first secret, but it had many more waiting to be discovered. Myra finally spoke, her voice steady with determination. "We need to explore further. There is more to this place. I can feel it. Rohan nodded. We came this far. We cannot turn back now. The explorers took one last look at the glowing figure, the pulsing structures, and the star map. Then, lanterns raised, they moved deeper into the hall, ready to uncover the next part of the crypt's ancient secret. The explorers moved deeper into the crypt. The hall stretched farther than they expected, the polished floor reflecting the blue glow from the tall structures behind them. Each step echoed softly, and the humming from the mechanism faded into a steady, low pulse. Myra led the group, her notebook clutched tightly, recording every symbol, every detail they saw. At the end of the hall, a large doorway appeared. Unlike the stone door at the entrance, this one seemed almost alive. Its surface shimmered faintly as if it were made of liquid metal. Symbols floated across it, glowing in rhythm with the hum that filled the chamber. Myra reached out, her hand hovering just above the doorway. The symbols shifted immediately, aligning in a pattern she could recognize. It knows we are here, she whispered. Rohan stepped forward, examining the doorway. This is not just a door. It is part of the mechanism. It responds to humans. As they approached, the doorway slowly opened, revealing a circular chamber beyond. It was vast, taller than any cathedral, with walls that gleamed like polished metal. At the center stood a figure, tall and luminous, with limbs slightly longer than a human's. Its eyes glowed softly, casting light across the chamber. The figure moved gracefully, stepping forward without a sound. Myra gasped. The figure was humanoid but unlike any human she had ever seen. Its skin seemed almost translucent, faintly reflecting the blue light from the walls. It raised its hands in a gesture that seemed both welcoming and commanding. It is the Guardian, Rohan said, awe in his voice. The murals were not just stories. This figure is what the crypt was protecting. The glowing being began to move its hands, and soft lights appeared in the air around it. The lights formed shapes and symbols that Myra could slowly understand. The Guardian was communicating. At first, it was only simple patterns, but soon the symbols formed words, clear enough for her mind to interpret. Humans are chosen, Myra read aloud in a whisper. You have found the hidden sanctuary. You are the caretakers of knowledge left by those who came before. Arun stepped closer, looking around the chamber in disbelief. Why humans? He asked quietly. Why not any other species? The Guardian's light pulsed in response, almost like a heartbeat. The symbols in the air shifted to show images of humans throughout history. They worked together, adapted to challenges, and used their creativity to solve problems. The Guardian's form seemed to glow brighter when Myra focused on the images. It trusts us because of what we are capable of, Myra said. It recognizes our potential. Rohan stepped forward, pointing to the glowing structures along the walls. And the machines, the star map, the mechanism, they are all connected to this Guardian. It is not only alive but intelligent. It can guide us. The Guardian raised one hand toward the ceiling. A section of the wall opened, revealing a holographic projection of the stars. Lines connected distant points, forming a complex network. Myra studied it closely. Some points pulsed brighter than others, and several were connected with glowing threads. It is showing us where the knowledge is, she whispered. Hidden places across the galaxy, archives left by the beings in the murals. The Guardian gestured again. The lines on the projection rearranged themselves, highlighting paths and connections that were previously unclear. Myra realized that the crypt had been waiting for humans not just to find it but to understand it, to interpret the map. Rohan studied the glowing figure. It is giving us instructions. We are not meant to take the knowledge by force. We must follow the paths it shows, learn from them, and continue its work. The Guardian moved closer, and a faint vibration passed through the floor. Myra felt a rush of energy, not painful but intense, as if the chamber itself were testing them. She looked at the others, who nodded silently. They understood. The crypt was not only a sanctuary but also a trial, a way to see if humans were ready for the responsibility. Arun stepped forward hesitantly. "What happens if we fail?" he asked. Myra shook her head. "I do not think it is about failure in the usual sense. It is about understanding and cooperation. We have to work together to follow its guidance." The Guardian's light pulsed again, and a series of new symbols appeared in the air. They formed a puzzle, a pattern that required observation and logic to solve. The explorers looked at each other, realizing this was their first challenge. It was not a test of strength but of mind and teamwork. Myra studied the symbols. "They are connected," she said. "The shapes, the lights, everything works together. We have to find the correct sequence." For the next several minutes, the explorers moved carefully, touching panels and tracing patterns with their hands. Each correct step caused the Guardian's light to pulse brighter. Every mistake resulted in a soft vibration that reminded them to try again. The chamber seemed patient, waiting for humans to figure it out. Finally, after a few tense moments, the pattern aligned perfectly. The Guardian's glow intensified, filling the entire chamber with bright blue light. The projection of the stars shifted, highlighting a single location. The humming of the mechanism reached a steady, harmonious rhythm, like a song of welcome. Myra stepped back, overwhelmed. "We did it. It accepted us." The Guardian's gestures formed new symbols in the air, showing humans interacting with distant knowledge, learning from it, and returning to the stars. Myra understood immediately. They were meant to continue the legacy, not simply discover it. Rohan looked at the star map again. "We are part of something much bigger. This is not just about this monastery or this crypt. It is about humanity's role in the galaxy." The Guardian moved one last time and stepped back, folding its arms in a gesture of calm. Its light dimmed slightly but remained steady. The explorers knew the chamber had given them its trust. The crypt had chosen humans to protect and understand the hidden knowledge, and the Guardian had confirmed it. Myra closed her notebook and looked at her companions. "We are ready. We have to follow the path it shows, explore the hidden places, and learn everything we can. This is only the beginning." Arun nodded slowly. "I never imagined humans could be trusted with something like this. But now that we are here, we have to honor it." Rohan smiled faintly. "The crypt has awakened. And it has chosen us as its caretakers. The journey ahead will be difficult, but we are not alone. The Guardian will guide us." The explorers took a moment to observe the chamber one last time. The glowing structures hummed gently, the star map pulsed softly, and the Guardian's light illuminated every corner. It was a room built for humans to understand, to learn, and to carry forward a legacy that had waited centuries for the right people to arrive. With determination in their hearts, they prepared to follow the path the crypt had revealed. The Guardian of the Stars had welcomed them, and the adventure that lay beyond the monastery was ready to begin. The explorers followed the glowing lines projected by the Guardian through the wide chamber. The walls hummed softly, guiding them like an invisible hand. Myra held her notebook tightly, recording the patterns of light and symbols. Every step felt purposeful, as if the crypt itself were leading them towards something greater. At the end of the chamber, the passage opened into a circular room. It was empty except for a series of platforms floating above the floor, each glowing faintly in soft blue light. The platforms were arranged in a circle, with a pedestal at the center. The humming intensified, and the explorers realized this room was not just a hall, it was a test. Rohan studied the platforms carefully. "It looks like we have to move across them. But the patterns are changing." Myra stepped forward and observed the glow. "The light shifts when we touch a platform. I think it reacts to our presence." Arun looked nervous. "What happens if we step on the wrong one?" Before anyone could answer, the platforms pulsed, and a line of energy connected them in a sequence. The explorers instinctively understood that this was a puzzle, a challenge designed to test their minds and teamwork. The room was silent except for the steady hum of the Guardian's energy. Myra took the first step. As she placed her foot on the platform, the glow brightened, and a soft vibration ran through the floor. She signaled to the others. Rohan stepped next, matching her movement carefully. The platforms responded, and the lines of light connecting them formed a complete pattern. "It is testing our ability to work together," Myra said. "It is not about speed. It is about understanding the connections." Arun followed, and the team moved as one. Each step required observation and careful thought. When they hesitated, the platform dimmed, giving them time to reconsider. When they acted with coordination, the light shone brighter, as if praising their effort. The final platform led them to the pedestal at the center of the room. It pulsed with energy, and a holographic image appeared above it. The image showed humans from the past, working together to solve problems, create tools, and explore unknown places. The Guardian had chosen humanity not for strength alone, but for resilience, creativity, and cooperation. Myra studied the image closely. This is what the trial is about. It is showing us that humans are capable of more than we realize. It is testing our mind and our ability to act together. Rohan nodded. Other species may have tried and failed. This trial is made for humans. The platforms shifted again, forming a bridge leading to a new chamber. The explorers crossed carefully, keeping their eyes on the patterns. The room ahead was larger, filled with tall pillars, each carved with ancient symbols. The air felt alive, vibrating with the memory of countless centuries. At the center of this chamber was a device unlike anything they had seen before. It was a cube, suspended above the floor by a faint energy field. The cube glowed with multiple colors, shifting like the surface of a living star. Myra reached out, but the cube remained distant, just beyond her reach. The Guardian's voice, or signal, filled the room. It was not words but patterns of light and vibration that the explorers could feel in their minds. The message was clear: they must solve the final part of the trial to reach the cube. Rohan examined the pillars. Each one had symbols that matched those on the glowing structures they had passed. "These are instructions," he said. "We have to arrange them in the correct sequence." Myra nodded. "It is a test of memory and logic. We have to remember the patterns from the murals, the star map, and the previous trials." The explorers worked together, moving from pillar to pillar, touching the symbols and observing the changes in the cube's light. Each correct choice made the cube pulse brighter. Every wrong step dimmed it slightly, reminding them to rethink their actions. Time passed slowly, but the team remained focused. They communicated silently, using gestures and quick glances to coordinate their moves. Finally, after careful thought, they completed the sequence. The cube's glow expanded, filling the chamber with bright light. The humming reached a steady, harmonious rhythm, resonating through every wall and floor tile. Myra approached the cube. As she placed her hands near it, the energy flowed into her. It was not painful but powerful, like a rush of knowledge and understanding. Images appeared in her mind: stars, planets, tools, and knowledge from beings long gone. She saw humans standing alongside the tall figures from the murals, sharing wisdom, learning, and creating together. "This is incredible," she whispered. "It is showing us what humans can achieve when we work together and use our minds." Rohan stepped beside her, feeling the energy as well. "The trial is complete. The Guardian has accepted us. It recognizes our worth." Arun smiled, his nervousness replaced by wonder. "We passed because we worked as a team. We thought together, remembered together, and acted together. This trial was not about strength. It was about unity." The cube slowly descended, coming within reach. Myra touched it lightly, and the chamber responded immediately. Holographic images of stars and constellations appeared, showing paths to distant places. The Guardian's energy pulsed in sync with the light, as if confirming that humans were now ready to explore the secrets it had protected. Myra studied the star map projected by the cube. These are locations of hidden knowledge, archives and places of learning left by those who came before. We have to follow them. Rohan nodded. This is why the crypt chose humans. We can think, create, and cooperate in ways that others cannot. That is why we passed the trial. The Guardian's light dimmed slightly but remained steady. The team understood that the trial was only the first step. The crypt had tested them, and now it had opened the way for them to continue the legacy. Humans were chosen not for power or strength, but for their ability to unite, adapt, and understand. Myra, Rohan, and Arun took a moment to look around the chamber. Every detail, every glowing platform, every pillar had contributed to the trial. The crypt had prepared them for the responsibilities ahead, teaching them patience, observation, and teamwork. This is only the beginning, Myra said. The trial showed us what we are capable of. Now we have to follow the path the Guardian has revealed. Rohan smiled. And we will. We are ready for whatever comes next. The explorers left the chamber together, their hearts filled with purpose. The platforms returned to their faint glow, and the trial room returned to quiet. The crypt had tested humanity and found them worthy. The Guardian had revealed their role among the stars, and the explorers understood that their journey was just beginning. As they moved deeper into the hidden corridors beneath the monastery, the glow of the Guardian's energy guided them. They knew challenges awaited, but now they had confidence. Humanity had passed the trial, proving that cooperation, intelligence, and courage were their greatest strengths. The crypt's legacy was now theirs to carry forward. The explorers stepped into the final chamber of the crypt. The walls were lined with smooth panels that reflected the soft blue glow from the glowing structures behind them. In the center, the cube they had activated in the previous trial pulsed gently, projecting a three-dimensional star map into the air. Each point of light marked a distant place, connected by glowing lines that formed pathways across the galaxy. Myra stared in awe. These are coordinates, she whispered. This is the hidden knowledge. We have to find it and learn from it. Rohan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The crypt trusted us to reach this point. Now it is giving us the next step. This is more than discovery. It is a responsibility. The Guardian of Light appeared once again, standing tall and luminous at the edge of the star map. Its eyes glowed softly, and its gestures directed their attention to certain paths on the map. Myra realized that these were not random points. They marked ancient archives, laboratories, and observatories built long before humans could record history. The beings in the murals had hidden their knowledge across the stars, trusting humans to find it when the time was right. The explorers moved closer to the star map. As they traced their fingers along the glowing lines, Myra felt a sudden clarity. The crypt was teaching them, showing them patterns, methods, and connections that had been preserved for centuries. It was as if the beings wanted humans to understand the galaxy in the same way they once had. Arun looked at the Guardian. Why us? Why humans? Myra spoke softly, almost to herself. Because humans can adapt. Humans can learn, create, and work together. That is why we passed the trials. That is why the crypt chose us. Other species may have been stronger or faster, but we can think, cooperate, and find solutions where others cannot. Rohan placed a hand on the cube. As he did, the star map shifted. Certain points pulsed brighter than the others. Myra studied them carefully. These are the first places we must visit, she said. The crypt is guiding us step by step. The Guardian moved closer, and the explorers noticed a faint light connecting the cube, the structures, and the murals on the walls. Each element of the crypt was linked, forming a network of knowledge. Myra understood that the crypt itself was alive in a sense. It was a system built to guide humans, to test them, and to ensure they were ready for the legacy entrusted to them. Rohan looked around at the glowing structures. This place was never meant to be just a hidden tomb. It was a teaching center, a sanctuary of knowledge, and now, a guide for humanity. Myra nodded. The murals showed cooperation. The trials tested us. The star map is the next step. Everything is connected. The beings who built this wanted us to understand that humans have a role in the galaxy, a role that requires responsibility and intelligence. The explorers took a deep breath. They realized that their journey was no longer about curiosity alone. It was about carrying forward a mission, preserving knowledge, and exploring places that had been hidden for centuries. Each path on the star map represented not only a discovery but also a chance to honor the trust placed in humans. Arun stepped forward hesitantly. This is more than exploration. This is history, legacy, and a promise. We have to do it right. Myra smiled faintly. We have the chance to show that humanity can rise to the responsibility. We passed the trial. The Guardian trusts us. Now we must continue that trust into the galaxy. The Guardian raised its hand, and a series of images appeared on the walls. They showed humans from the past interacting with the tall beings, learning from them, and sharing wisdom. Then the images shifted, showing humans standing alone in space, exploring planets, and using intelligence to overcome challenges. Myra realized that this was a vision of what humans could become. Rohan reached out to touch one of the projections. It is teaching us, showing us what we are capable of. This is more than knowledge. It is guidance for the future. The explorers spent hours observing the star map and the projections. Each detail revealed new connections, new possibilities, and new locations. They took careful notes, sketching every symbol, every path, and every glowing line. They understood that the crypt's legacy was now their responsibility. Myra finally spoke. We are the first to understand this fully. The crypt chose humans because we can carry its knowledge forward. We are not just visitors. We are guardians, explorers, and learners. The Guardian's glow pulsed gently, almost like approval. Its presence reminded them that they were not alone in their journey. They had passed the trial, proven their worth, and were now entrusted with the mission of preserving and expanding the knowledge hidden in the stars. Arun looked at Myra and Rohan. We need to plan carefully. Each location on the star map is important. We have to be patient, observant, and ready for challenges. Rohan nodded. And we will. The crypt prepared us for this. The trials showed us what we are capable of. Now it is time to take the next step. Myra took one last look at the glowing structures. The halls had tested them, taught them, and guided them to this moment. She felt a deep sense of respect for the beings who had built this crypt. They had trusted humans to carry their legacy, and now it was up to the explorers to honor that trust. The Guardian of Light began to fade slowly, its job complete in this chamber. The star map remained, glowing softly, ready for the explorers to follow its paths. Myra, Rohan, and Arun understood that the crypt was not finished. It would continue to guide them, but the work had shifted from trial to action. Myra closed her notebook, her heart filled with determination. We have been given a gift, she said. A responsibility that only humans could carry. We cannot waste it. We must follow the path, learn everything we can, and share it with others who are worthy. Rohan smiled. The crypt has shown us the way. It has proven that humans are capable of more than we imagined. This is our chance to rise to the challenge. Arun nodded, his eyes shining with excitement. And we will. We have the knowledge, the guidance, and the ability. This is the beginning of a human legacy that will reach the stars. The explorers turned toward the star map, tracing the glowing lines with their fingers one final time. Each point of light represented a hidden archive, a piece of knowledge waiting to be discovered. The crypt beneath the monastery had revealed its secrets, tested humanity, and now passed its torch to them. As they prepared to leave the chamber, the monks above silently watched from the shadows, unaware of the full extent of what had been discovered. The explorers knew that they carried not only ancient knowledge but also the promise of a new future. Humanity had been chosen, and now it was up to them to rise to the responsibility. Myra took a deep breath, feeling the energy of the crypt pulse through her. "The journey is far from over," she said. "But now we know our purpose. We are the keepers of knowledge, the explorers of the stars, and the guardians of a legacy that has waited for us for centuries." Rohan and Arun nodded in agreement. Together, they stepped forward, ready to follow the paths the crypt had revealed, ready to discover hidden knowledge, and ready to prove that humanity could rise to the challenge. The human legacy had begun, and the stars awaited. The crypt beneath the ancient monastery fell silent once more, its glowing structures calm, its trials complete. But its secrets were alive, waiting to be discovered by those who were worthy. And humanity had been chosen.